It's time!
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about.
Hello, and welcome to the TWSN Patreon page. Here we will provide you with the sports betting tips, picks, and information in order for you to become a successful gambler. We have 5 packages that I think really do an incredible job of providing the information tailored to you, what you want, and what your sports betting needs are. For more information, reach out to the TWSN team, but we have a ton of stuff coming your way. Content from fantasy football, sports betting for UFC, NBA, NHL, and of course the NFL. We are so excited to be able to bring this service to you, and let us know if there's any more information you need.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down on.
What's going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to another edition of Strikes and Submissions here. Your host, Dorian Wright, along with my co-host, Michael Daly. Mike, how we feeling today?
We're back. It's been 2 weeks. Hasn't really felt like it. Honestly, it's felt longer than that, but it's always great to be on with you, Dorian.
For sure. And obviously we missed last week. Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate. But we have a stacked show for you guys. Obviously, last week, Bud Crawford and Sean Porter had fought. So we're going to dive right into it with the boxing. We're going to start off with boxing. Mike, I told you it was going to happen. We both knew it was going to happen, but come on, man. He is the best in his division. The floor is yours.
Stop it. Stop yourself. So we're saying a knockout victory over Sean Porter, who is 35 years old, somewhere around there now. That makes him better than Errol Spence. Look, I love Terrence Crawford. Terrence might be the third best fighter on the planet. I think he is. I think it's Canelo, Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. That's how great Crawford is. But come on. I can't say because of a knockout victory where Kenny Porter jumped in and waved the white flag, threw in the towel, that automatically allows him to jump over Errol Spence. I can't do it.
Don't say it like that. He threw in the towel because we saw the writing on the wall. There was no chance for Porter. It wasn't like he threw in the towel prematurely.
Sean could have kept going, though. Sean is one tough customer.
Yeah, there's a difference between continuing to go and the return of, diminishing returns.
Right.
The law of diminishing returns. He wasn't going to do anything more than he did.
What I'm saying is, though, Dorian, it wasn't a clean knockout. If it was like we were talking about before the show, if this was a Francis Ngannou, Alistair Overeem, which is the 4th anniversary of it, if it was that type of an uppercut, sure, fine. I will buy into the hype. Right now, I can't put Terrence Crawford over Errol Spence when Errol Spence also knocked down Sean Porter in the 10th round of their fight.
Fair. I think that when you look at it, you can't, it's like we can't do MMA math. We can't do boxing math. Obviously, Porter's a bit older at a different stage in his career. Some people think, me included, he was semi-retired with the announcing gig he has or the commentating gig he has. But let's give credit where it's due. Terrence Crawford showed up and showed out. He did what he said he was going to do, and it was close. It was close on the cards. I had him up. I saw one card said he was up 3 rounds. Another judge had him up 1 at the time of the knockout. So it was close, but he was in control of the fight. There wasn't any moments where he got dropped or he thought he wouldn't, you thought he was in control of the fight. And I think that's important when you're fighting a veteran like Sean Porter.
It's very important. And you know what? I'm glad Terrence Crawford might be done with Top Rank, because now it's only up from here. Mm-hmm. Reportedly, the pay-per-view only did 130,000 buys, somewhere around there. That's not good. I'm sorry. For someone as great as Terrence Crawford is, which he is, he's Absolutely. A superstar a Hall of Famer. That's how great Terrence Crawford is. He's got to go. And in order for one day for him to be better than Errol Spence, or at least to prove it to me and others, he has to go to another promotion. May not have to be Premier Boxing, but go to somewhere that will allow you to play ball with any other team. Right now, with Top Rank, Bob Arum, as much of a legend as he is, for the past 15 years or so, he has gotten very stubborn with allowing his stars to move over and to make the fights everyone wants to see. Essentially, he held up the Floyd Mayweather-Manny Pacquiao fight. He did that.
Yep.
So that's why, if I'm Terrence Crawford, I'm getting out of there. I thank Bob for his services over the past 10 years, everything he did, but I'm also not going to forget what Bob Arum said about Terrence Crawford. He said...
That's the most important part to me.
He said last year, had he not promoted Terrence Crawford, he could have bought a house in Beverly Hills with all the money he lost. Come on, you don't say that about your fighter. Dana White called him out on it. It's time for Terrence Crawford to get out, make his money, and show that he is a Hall of Fame boxer.
And to your point, I'm glad you brought the numbers up because I was going to bring it up as well. When he was sitting after the fight with Bob Arum, he's like, no negotiations. I'm done with Top Rank. Thanks, Bob. But why would I stay here when you couldn't even give me the Errol Spence fight? I've been asking for one fight for years, and you can't get me that. You won't get me that. You won't try. And like you said, when Bob Arum said after his fight, he's like, oh, I'm losing money promoting him. I looked it up. Terrence Crawford was Top Rank's highest draw. And like you said, this past pay-per-view was only available on ESPN Plus. Terrence Crawford had an issue with that. He said, hey, there's some older people who don't know the ESPN app. They don't have the ESPN app. They can't pull it up on their TV. It's not just a pay-per-view. You can go to the pay-per-view channels on cable and buy it, like most boxing events are. And I see here, him and Amir Khan did approximately $125,000. Now, at the time, that was the biggest fight of his career, probably the biggest name he'd fought, Amir Khan. Sean Porter is a bigger name than Amir Khan in America.
Yep.
And I think they should have done way more than I have it under 150K. You said it was 132.
Yeah, I don't know the exact. What I checked, it was either 130 or 135.
Okay, yeah. Even
Either
that,
way, it's not great.
That's not great. Coming off Amir Khan, you have to go up. You can't be stagnant. And has been stagnant at Top Rank, which is why he's frustrated and why he's leaving. But overall, as far as the fight went, I side with his dad just a little bit. Like, as a father, just seeing your son get dropped, and he said, hey, once my son starts doing things, I know how it's gonna go. I've seen him train for years and years and years. I raised him. This is my seed. So I don't want to see him get any more punishment, unnecessary punishment, knowing that it's his retirement fight. I don't know if that was said beforehand, but obviously I'm assuming the dad knew this was going to be Porter's last fight. So I can see why he threw in the towel, maybe a bit prematurely to you, but I can see why he threw in the towel. It's only 2 rounds left. Porter's not getting stronger as the fight's going on. He kept dipping his head, and he dipped his head into the shot that put him on his back pockets and ultimately ended the fight.
I don't want it to seem like I'm criticizing Kenny Porter. What I am saying, though, it's more so people like yourself propping up Terrence Crawford above Errol Spence. I'm not taking anything away from Kenny Porter. That's his son. He's in the gym with him. He even said Sean Porter, something was off in the camp. He had a feeling Sean just wasn't giving it his all. And Kenny knows his son better than anyone else, so I get it. And I'm not blaming him for that. But at the end of the day, Sean Porter, this guy's a gladiator. He's a modern-day gladiator. He goes in there, wants to go out on his shield. It's not great that his father stepped in. I'm sure that's not what he wanted, but he respected his father's decision. I do want to say Sean Porter has to get some recognition for a potential Hall of Fame bid in boxing. He has to. He's a 2-time champion. He's fought everybody. Put it this way, Dorian. If they would have offered him Floyd Mayweather around 2013 to 2015 in that range, he would have taken that fight. That's how game he was, and that's how ready he was for the big time. Yes, he fell short against Kell Brook, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, and Terrence Crawford. But this guy took on all comers and won 2 belts. That's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and not to mention, the guys you're naming aren't just guys he should, like, we expect him to beat. We don't expect
Hall of Famers too.
We don't expect anybody to beat those. Like, Crawford and Spence are both undefeated. Kell Brooks isn't undefeated, I don't believe.
No.
But these are undefeated world-class fighters. And Sean Porter was once undefeated in world-class as well. But I agree with you. I think his name will be in the Hall of Fame. And especially with the commentating gig, you get a little more rub, a little more TV time. You know, someone can shine your wheels a little more. You can shine your own wheels a little more on Showtime or whatever it is. But yeah, I definitely think his career was long. It was great. Won titles, world champion. But I'm glad he's hanging it up now. Because if your father is saying you're not training hard, then you can't be fighting these top level guys. You can't keep taking these big names and not giving it your all, because you see what happens when you're not on your P's and Q's. So speaking of, we can transition right into another top level guy, a bit younger, but Devin Haney and Jojo Diaz are fighting on Saturday. It's important to note. I think this is going to be a huge, huge, huge performance by Devin Haney personally. With Teofimo losing, him, Teofimo, and Gervonta, the 3 kings of the division. Oh, who's the best? Well, we see Teofimo lose. I don't think Devin Haney wants to get upset like that. And we see all the backlash that came with it. All the boxers saying, oh, he didn't train hard. He's walking in with his hands down, expecting to get a win. I think Devin Haney comes out and shows why he belongs in that 3 kings conversation, if you will.
I do think it is fair to say that Devin Haney is on upset alert. I think that's fair. With what happened with Teofimo Lopez, I think that is fair to say, basing it off of the scare Devin Haney had in his last fight. Ooh. Now, I thought Haney received too much criticism for his performance. He fought Jorge Linares, who was a former 3-division world champion. Of course, Jorge Linares is going to give you the toughest fight you have ever competed in. Of course, that was going to happen. But look, Devin Haney, he prevailed. He was able to build up a lead. Yes, he kind of withered away once round 10 hit. But again, it all comes down to winning rounds, especially if it goes to a decision. And that's what he did. But also, he has knockout power too. 15 knockouts and 26 wins. He has some pop too. I think this is going to be a tougher fight than Linares, because Jojo Diaz has been a world champion before. Right now, he's the interim titleist in the lightweight division. For Jojo Diaz, he has been on a big stage before and come up short, but he's going to give it his all. He is going to be there in the pocket, throwing haymakers like he did against Gary Russell. He's not going to go away. Mm-hmm. But I think Devin Haney, yes, he's on upset alert, but if he's allowed to work his jab like he did against Linares and move out of the way, not allow Jojo Diaz to walk him down like Diaz loves to do, Devin Haney, I think, should retain his belt. So I have Haney winning.
I have Haney as well. And against Linares, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he like 10 years older than him at the time they fought, or something crazy like that?
Might have been closer to 15.
Yeah, Devin Haney's only 24, right?
Yeah, Devin is 23. Let me double check Jorge's age, because Jorge's been a pro since 2002.
Yeah, because I remember his name has came up before, and I'm like, okay, I know this guy. So when you see Devin Haney, I'm not gonna say he struggled with him, because like you said, I didn't think the criticism of his performance was warranted either. But when you are that top tier, and you're not only in your division, just in the world period, we expect greatness every time out. You can't have an off night. And I think obviously Haney knows that. Haney saw what happened to Fimo, doesn't want it to happen to him. Like you said, upset alert. Everyone's on upset alert now. Oh my God, Kambosos can do that? okay, let me take my guy more seriously. So I think his skills will show ultimately, and I do think Jojo Diaz will take it to the final bell. I don't think he gets a finish, but I think Haney has a beautiful bounce back performance where it's undeniable that he is the rightful champion in the division.
Diaz is also prone to getting cut. That's one thing. If you watch a lot of Jojo Diaz's fights, he gets cut a lot. If you're Devin Haney, I'm sure you're watching the film, or at least his dad, Bill Haney, and his other trainers, and you know if you can hit that eye the right way, it could cause some complications. So I think Devin Haney is out to prove why he's the very best lightweight. Many people disagree. Ryan Garcia disagrees with that. But Devin Haney is able to package it all together. I'm telling you. When it comes to being a sound boxer, is he Vasily Lomachenko? No, but he's pretty darn close. If he's not on that level, he might be, aside from Lomachenko, the most technical lightweight in boxing.
Yeah. I think his technique is so pure at such a young age.
It's crisp.
It's rare you see that at such a young, like, how old are you, Mike?
I am 21.
He's barely older than you, and he's fighting the greatest boxers he can find.
Yep.
That'll sign to fight him. And I don't want that to be overstated. We see these young athletes come in, they get handed millions of dollars at 17, 18, or in, like combat sports, you got to work your way up to this. To be able to work your way up 25 fights in at 23 years old, that says a lot about your work ethic, your skills, and he has knockout power, like you said. So I don't see Jojo getting knocked out. Maybe, like you said, if it's a cut, maybe a TKO, doctor stoppage or ref stoppage. But I think this is going to be a nice 12-round victory unanimously for Devin Haney.
It should be. Devin Haney's a prodigy because his uncle, or not his uncle, his godfather is Zab Judah, former champion, great boxer.
Really?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think I have that wrong. Zab Judah is his godfather. If that's the case, then you're in some pretty good company.
Yeah, I'd say.
And Haney was so good as an amateur that if it wasn't for the age restrictions and the headgear complications in the Olympics, he would have qualified for the Olympics at 16. That's how good he was in 2016. But he just wasn't young enough, or he was too young, I should say. And he decided, you know what? I can't go in the Olympics. That's fine. I will get my professional certification in Mexico. I will turn pro at 17, and I will take the world by storm. And that's what he did.
Yeah, and just the determination to be able to do that, to look outside the box. I'm not going to wait till I'm 18. I'm not going to wait until I actually can qualify legally. I'm going to go to another country and get this money, because that type of, like you said, that type of prodigy it's a once in a generation type of thing. Like we saw it with Floyd, and now we're seeing it with him. I didn't know Zab Judah was godfather. Wow. Mike dropping gems on us, guys. Give a round of applause.
Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure it is Zab Judah. I'll double check that.
And what a person to have in your corner since you were, 9, 10 years old boxing. I think you got to be 8 years old to compete with headgear on. So I'm pretty sure Haney's probably in the gym at 8.
It is Zab Judah.
With Zab Judah. That's crazy.
Yep.
Man. But I think this is, if he has a great performance in this fight, I think it'll lead to our next topic. If he can get a good performance and Tank Davis has a good performance, it might be time. I don't know. So Gervonta, Tank Davis going up against Pitbull Cruz. Obviously, Rolly was supposed to fight, but some allegations caused him to pull out of this fight against Gervonta. They had the viral press conference I thought was hilarious. I love just pre-fight press conferences. It tells me so much. But, okay, so Rolly's forced out of the fight, and Cruz stepped in about a month ago. But this fight is on Sunday, which is important. Tank, I was listening to him in an interview, and he was saying how he's so used to fighting on Saturdays. Fighting on Sundays is going to be a little different for him, but he's excited for it. It's the Staples Center. It's a Sunday night. you know, you're going to have to compete with the NFL and Sunday Night Football. But at the end of the day, he has the star power to be able to do it. It's on pay-per-view, so we'll see when his pay-per-view numbers come in, you know, and Haney and him can line up on a collision course to take out one of the three kings.
You know what, Dorian? I honestly would have preferred if it was on a Friday night. I know for Showtime it would have been hard because they're having their Bellator card tomorrow night. But it makes sense to an extent because they don't want to compete with the Devin Haney card because that's been set in stone for quite some time now. And I think Devin Haney with Matchroom, they were wondering, should they go December 3rd, which would be a Friday night tomorrow night, or December 4th, Saturday night. They were kind of flip-flopping, but they settled in on December 4th. If you're Showtime, it is a gamble, but you have put on successful pay-per-view bouts on Sundays. Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather, Jake Paul against Tyron Woodley, and now you have the potential next pay-per-view king, Gervonta Davis. So I get it. It is a risk. It's a gamble, but it might pay off.
Yeah, and I think as far as the fight goes, this is for the WBA light heavyweight, Jesus, the lightweight title. It's a title defense for Tank. His last fight was at super lightweight, if I'm not mistaken. He moved up to fight Barrios, got a crazy KO, and now he's fighting a guy who's relatively unknown on a national, worldwide scale. I don't think it's going to end well for him. I'll just be frank. I think Tank had his mind set on knocking Rolly's block off, and he can't get that, so he's probably going to be even more pissed. And Tank's a guy, you don't want to fight him, period, but if you have to, don't piss him off leading up to the fight because that left uppercut is money. He has the best left hand in the game, and I don't think it's close.
I agree with that. I agree. Tank might be the most ferocious puncher in boxing, and it might not be close.
It's not.
However, I would say Isaac Cruz in this fight might be a more dangerous opponent than we're giving him credit, and he might even be a more dangerous opponent than Rolly Romero. Frankly, I was not impressed with Romero's last outing. And you know what? Maybe it was a good thing he was pulled off this card. Taking aside the circumstances, I'm not saying that's a good thing. All the accusations, those weren't good. But I think he was going to get destroyed by Gervonta Davis. At least with Isaac Cruz, he's a relative unknown. Unless you're a real boxing fan, you don't really know who he is. And he's a 23-year-old who has a ton to prove. He's also called Pitbull, like you said. He's coming in there to fight. He doesn't care that he's going up against one of the pound-for-pound best fighters on the planet in Gervonta Davis. He doesn't care. He even said in All Access, Gervonta's great, but he's not impossible to beat. He thinks he has the stuff to beat him. I don't see that, but I do think he's going to give Gervonta Davis a relatively tough task on Sunday evening. I think it's going to be far more difficult than the task that Rolly Romero would have thrown his way. But I do see Gervonta getting a highlight knockout.
Yeah, I think a highlight knockout is the only way that this fight ends. I also think that if he, like you said, he is a relatively unknown, but I watched a few of his highlights of his most recent fights. He comes forward. Mm-hmm. And if he can keep Tank on the back foot, that'll be best for him. I don't know how much success he's going to have with that. Good luck to him. But I do think he is a more dangerous opponent than Rolly. Because I don't really like, no offense, obviously he's a professional, world class at that level. So what is my opinion? But I don't like his style. I think he just throws wild shots and hopes to land as opposed to being a more precise boxer. Actually, you know, technical. That's the word I'm looking for. The technique. Rolly's technique isn't as good as Cruz's, and it took me 2-3 minutes of a YouTube highlight to figure that out. So I do think Tank is in for a bit of a tougher fight, but at this stage in his career, I don't see Tank losing to anybody. I don't see him losing to Haney. I don't see him losing to Fimo. Kambusos. If he somehow lines up with Tank, I don't see Tank losing. I think it would take an extreme power puncher that could take Tank out. Because I don't think if you try to last 12 rounds of him, it's unlikely that you're leaving without getting dropped at least once or twice.
The only way Tank loses is if he either fights Josh Taylor, which I think would be a very tough fight for him at 140, or he decides to go all the way up to 147. If he goes up to 147, I think he's going to have a tough time against the champions there. Or even someone like Jaron Ennis, I think would give him all he can handle and then some. But from 130 to 140, aside from Josh Taylor, I think Gervonta beats everybody. The only guy I think who could really withstand him is Vasily Lomachenko. If Vasily doesn't get flat out KO'd by Gervonta in a fight and he's able to get up, I think Vasily has the staying power to survive and continue to outbox. That's the only guy I think has a relative and remote chance from 130 pounds and up to 140 to beat Gervonta. But even then, Gervonta has what it takes to knock out Vasily Lomachenko as well.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think Loma fights in like a month or so, maybe.
Not even next Saturday, 9 days from now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I know Lomachenko's fighting. So if Haney doesn't do it and Tank doesn't do it, I think these three fights with Loma, Tank, and Haney, if obviously given they all win, they got to match up two of them. They have to.
Yeah.
Because we keep seeing these undefeated, okay, he has two titles, and everyone just keeps each other away to hold their star like, Bob Arum does at Top Rank. And it's not good for the sport. We want to see who's the pound for pound number one for the division. Put them in there together. So I'm ready for them to get in there together.
They have to get in there, or Ryan Garcia has to fight one of these guys. You have to have a unification or some big fight, because yes, Ryan Garcia did not look great against Luke Campbell, but he knows how to sell a fight, and he has a belt. So that would be a solid fight. But the one I want to see is either Devin Haney, Gervonta Davis, because of that tie to the Mayweather gym. That is a great storyline. And these guys, I don't think they like each other. I'm pretty sure they sparred, but you obviously hear conflicting reports on what happened. Each side's going to say they won.
As they should.
Right. But if they get into a legitimate sanctioned bout, I'm interested to see how that goes, because Haney is an impeccable boxer. Impeccable. But he has been caught before. Jorge Linares had him wobbled in the 10th round. Gervonta Davis hits you like that, you're in trouble. Lomachenko also has power. You do not want to get hit by Lomachenko because he hits you with speed. If there is one of these fighters I'm not worried about getting upset, it is Vasily Lomachenko. I do not see Richard Comey beating him. I don't. I don't see it.
That's a fair point. I do think that out of all those names you named, Ryan Garcia, if I'm not mistaken, he was booked against Tank. And then they pulled him out of the fight for mental health issues. I don't know if that was ever clarified.
It wasn't Tank. I think it was actually Jojo Diaz. They had a fight. I want to say it was Diaz, or at least he was scheduled to fight Diaz at some point, because July 2021, this July, that was the mental health reason why he pulled out of that fight in July.
And Diaz won the interim title.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be Diaz.
So now Gervonta's taking Ryan Garcia's basically title.
Yeah.
If he wins.
Yep.
Well, then Ryan Garcia has to step. And I forgot who he beat, but I'm ready for Tank. I'm a man of my word. Let's go. And then everyone's like, hey, you don't want that. And then he was like, yeah, I probably don't. But yeah, I out of those guys, I don't think he belongs Not yet. He's very young. He has quick hands, and he does have technique, but I don't think his power is there yet. He has to fill out a little more because Tank is a grown man. He has grown man strength, grown man punching power, and like you said, the ties to Floyd's gym. If you are a TMT fighter, I'm picking you because I know you're being trained and supervised and just officiated by the best.
Well, Rolly is too.
Yeah, but it's a difference. There's guys we see who Floyd's in their corner, Floyd's bigging them up, and there's guys just under the TMT banner. We know who it is. It's
right.
Tanks, it's Devin Haney. When you get guys like Rolly, Floyd not in Rolly's corner telling him you down on the unofficial scorecards. Floyd's not in Floyd's not in his face hyping him up for the fight. I do think that ultimately Floyd isn't going to be one of those promoters that keeps his guys away from each other to see who's the best because he was impacted by it for so long in his career.
Right.
I don't think he would do that to another athlete, especially the up-and-comers.
And Floyd fought everybody. Everyone wants to say Floyd ducked, Floyd did this, Floyd fought the who's who, fought everybody. So it makes sense. As a promoter, he wants his guys to square up because guess what? It makes his promotional company a lot of money.
Yeah, keep it all in-house.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, he had to fight a couple guys twice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can never win with that. But man, there's a lot of boxing we covered. I think this might be the most we've ever covered. And we can slide into a bit more boxing-ish. We had a little Triller event. I'm not gonna call it little, excuse me. We had a Triller event. It's called Triad Combat. It's a triangle instead of like a squared circle or octagon. So it's a triangle, but it's boxing with clinching. So it's really just dirty boxing. And when I was watching it, I'm thinking like there's rules. I'm thinking someone's about to get like swept or something in the clinch. And it's like, no, when you fall, the ref's going to 8 count you and you're going to get up. I'm like, okay, so it's just dirty boxing. I actually found it very entertaining on the week that we didn't have fights to be able to pay, $3-4 to subscribe for this. And we got a full night of like Frank Mir's on the card. Rampage is the promoting it. It's team MMA versus team boxing. We had, MMA guys going up against boxing guys, beating them in boxing. Like, that's crazy. And then speaking of Errol Spence, I don't know how I didn't bring this up earlier. He was at the event. He was like, yo, boxers, y'all making us look sad. Like, come on, dog. Don't make me get in here. So I thought that was kind of cool. But, one guy's out winning world titles, knocking out Sean Porter. The other guy's at Triller events. You tell me who's the best. I don't know.
The Triller event was in his hometown, though, to be fair. It was at the Texas Rangers Stadium. So I'll give him a bit of a pass on that. But to talk about the event itself, whoever thought it was a good idea to put Frank Mir in there with Kubrat Pulev, who just fought for a world title in his last boxing match before Frank Mir, should have their license revoked and should never sanction another fight again. I'm sorry. Who on earth thought that was going to be a good idea? Who? I'm sorry. I don't care if it's a triangle ring, a rectangular ring, an octagon. I don't care what it is. If you're not allowed to grapple and it's purely striking, not even striking, you're just throwing punches, Kubrat Pulev is going to hurt Frank Mir 100 times out of 100 times. And it's not close. Frank Mir lost to Antonio Tarver in April. Who thought he was going to have a chance against the guy who was a world title contender not even a year ago? I don't know. I get it. It was a great night. Awesome. MMA did great. And they shocked a lot of people. They shocked Shannon Briggs. But look, Shannon Briggs would lose to Kubrat Pulev if they fought. Why on earth would you put Frank Mir in there?
Yo, that's a good point.
I don't get it.
That's a great point. I think Briggs versus Rampage as promoters for Team MMA and Team Boxing is actually really funny. I thought it was real fun. I could tell they weren't gonna fight. You can tell it's somewhat staged. Like,
Well, Nick Cannon was there. Nick Cannon, nothing's happening on his watch.
Yeah, he got too many responsibilities for something to happen on his watch. But last but not least, I did think it was kind of cool that Rampage took like the team MMA belt home. And he was like, yo, I'm putting this in the trophy case with all my other. And I was just like, all right, Rampage. But I mean, I thought it was fun. I think for it to be as big as Rampage is looking for it to be, I think they need to have more consistent events. I don't think they can keep up weekly with UFC, given the payouts that these guys were reportedly getting. Mike Perry reportedly got $250,000. And I saw somewhere that that's like more money than the last 4 of his UFC fights combined, including the bonuses if he got some. So if you can pay $250,000 to a guy to open up the main card, then I can only imagine what Frank Mir got. I can only imagine. Like, Frank Mir has accolades, has belts, has his name brings attention. So yeah, well, Triller is known for just throwing money around. You know, they have concerts during Jake Paul fights, but I think if they can do it maybe like once a month or once every other month, I think this can actually catch some traction because it's boxing, you know, but with clinching. So it's kind of the same, but it's kind of not. And not for nothing, they're going to get a lot of the older MMA acts to do it because they're going to pay them out. And not for nothing, I think older MMA guys are looking at it like food. They're like, oh my God, we've been boxing for so long, not getting any recognition for our hands, you know, say a wrestler. And now we can just come in and box. Yeah, I'll do it. So I think this has to get going now, though. It has to keep their foot on the gas while they have some traction in the community. Don't let this go away 2-3 months and then have it pop up again, because I feel like a lot of people will forget about it.
The one good thing is that it is a triangular ring, and that seems to work more in the favor of the MMA fighter just because of the way you have to position yourself, the way you're walking down somebody. It's harder to cut people off. And if you're an MMA guy, that's in your wheelhouse because you're used to clinching. You're used to not having a whole lot of distance and having to close that distance. It looked like team boxing had a very hard time adjusting to it. I don't think they realized what hit them. I'm sure they trained where they had kind of cut off ropes in their ring and you could only move in this way, or bungee cords to kind of block off in training. But I don't think you could actually prepare for it unless you've been in there before, or you're an MMA fighter who's used to fighting in weird quarters. So it seemed to work out in the MMA team's favor, and it might in the future.
Yeah, and not for nothing, I saw Tyron Woodley said he'd be interested in doing that. So, hey, T-Wood, these ain't – and they're also – the gloves are a bit smaller. I think the fingers are out. So, excuse me, it's not these soft punches that these – I'm not going to say soft, but it's not as soft of a punch as a boxer maybe used to feeling. And it's not as hard of a punch as an MMA fighter is used to feeling with 4-ounce gloves. So I do think this is an advantage for MMA, and it's a way for these older guys to get paid. I'm all for it, man. And it's not – what I like about it is it's not phony. It doesn't look rigged. Like when Frank Mir was out on his feet, he was just looking like, bro, do I still have to punch him? Like he doesn't belong in here. And I agree with you. Whoever sanctioned that should be disciplined, to say the least. But kind of off that, transitioning into MMA, we have Bellator 272 this weekend. Obviously, it's Sergio Pettis against Kyoji Horiguchi, who's making his Bellator debut. Coming over from Ryzen, was the Ryzen champion. It's for the 135 strap. So bantamweights, this is a big one. And not for nothing, if you guys aren't familiar with Horiguchi, he was UFC veteran. He's fought Mighty Mouse for the title. It was a really close fight until Mighty Mouse submitted him with literally 1 second left. He beat Manel Kopp over in Ryzen, who's now an up and coming prospect in the UFC division. And he's extremely well-rounded. He has no flaws in his game. He has submission wins. He has knockouts. He has, wrestling background. He has good striking. And then we have Sergio Pettis, who, again, used to be in the UFC. He has wins over the current UFC champ, Brandon Moreno. Granted, that's flyweight. But Joseph Benavidez, who recently retired, he has a win. And he beat Juan Archuleta for the vacant bantamweight title. So Sergio's on a little run, Mike. Who you got in this fight?
As much as I was impressed with Sergio Pettis beating Juan Archuleta, that shocked me. I thought Archuleta was going to get it done. For this fight, I'm going to go with Horiguchi. Horiguchi, I've been impressed with him for a long, long time. I've watched him beat Darian Caldwell. That was an impressive victory in 2019. I have seen what he has done in Rizin, and for him to fight Kai Asakara, come off that loss the first time, and then avenge that loss last year with a knockout victory in a vicious way, I think Horiguchi is out to prove why he's one of the best bantamweights in the world. And it's easy for a lot of people to overlook him because he's one of those guys, unless you're a diehard MMA fan like you and I are, we know who he is. But if you're not, you probably know who Pettis is, or at least you'll respect Pettis more because he's a champion in a well-known organization. Compared to Rizin, who's over in Japan, it's not what Pride was, and it's a little different. But Horiguchi's the real deal. You said it. He's been in there with everybody, pretty much. You name it, he's probably been in there with them. And I think Horiguchi's going to shock the world in Uncasville, Connecticut.
Yeah, I see Horiguchi getting the win. And my mistake, I did say it was his Bellator debut. He beat Darren Caldwell, like you said, for the Bellator 35 belt. And then he had a knee injury, I believe. So he didn't fight in Bellator the past couple of years. He went back over to Rizin. But yeah, like you said, he's extremely well-rounded. And not for nothing, Pettis might be the more known name because he's more recently in the UFC. Also, his brother, obviously, Anthony Pettis, we all know him. But I don't think he has anything for Horiguchi. And not to be demeaning or disrespectful, but I don't see a way in which he gets this fight to the ground safely. Mm-hmm. I don't see a way in which he stands with Horiguchi safely. If there's ring rust or something of that nature, because Pettis has been a bit more active as of late, that'd probably be the only thing, but I don't even see that being a thing. But I do think this does go the full 5-5s. So I think it's a hard 5s, unanimous decision by Horiguchi. He gets his belt back.
I think so too. I think Pettis is too much of a veteran to be stopped by Horiguchi, but there are holes in Pettis' game. It's a big reason why he left the UFC. I don't think he's extremely comfortable on the ground, albeit he performed well against Juan Archuleta, and I think he outstruck Juan Archuleta as well. But Horiguchi, in my opinion, Dorian, might be the next superstar in Bellator. If he's able to beat Sergio Pettis with his following from Japan, to me, that's setting up the next superstar in Bellator. So I am big on Kyoji Horiguchi, and I think he's going to get a victory.
Yeah, and not for nothing, I did see Sergio Pettis. Someone asked him in an interview, like, do you feel like the actual champion because he vacated the belt? And Pettis admitted to not feeling like the champ. He said, no, this is his belt. I'm just babysitting it till he gets back. And saying something like that, it shows that you're not as confident as maybe you should be as the undisputed champion, which he is. He's not the interim bantamweight champion. He's undisputed. He beat Juan Archuleta.
Yeah.
Well, it was a Grand Prix. Like, you got to, I don't know. I just think you have to have more confidence. You're talking about you're babysitting the belt for someone means you're going to give it back to him. At least that's how I took it. So I think he's going to come back, probably win 4-1 or 3-2 against Pettis. I think maybe the first round Pettis might surprise him with something, but I don't see him having much success on the feet with Horiguchi. But speaking of, last but not least, certainly not least, when it comes to the feet, there's two guys in the 35 division. What a weekend for 35ers, by the way. Wow. Haney, Tank. Wow. I just thought about that. Okay.
Great weekend.
So, yeah, for the small guys. So we have Rob Font and Jose Aldo, UFC Vegas fight night, 5 rounds. Who you got in this one?
I have Rob Font. I see this being a boxing match. Jose Aldo, what he loves to do, sets up a jab, body shot, and then that right low calf kick. That's his bread and butter. Did it against Pedro Munoz. Worked to a T. I see this being a boxing match, and as great as Aldo is, he might be in trouble in this fight. I don't think he's going to be stopped, but Font outboxed Cody Garbrandt. That shocked me. It's not too often that Cody Garbrandt gets outboxed. Cody Garbrandt can get clipped. He can get stopped. That's fine. But to get outboxed and to force Cody Garbrandt into a wrestler, which is something we have never really seen, that says something about your boxing. Rob Font's pretty good with his hands. I see this going the full 5 rounds. Rob Font is younger. I think as hot as Aldo is right now, and I think Aldo has gotten a lot of momentum back, this is a tough fight for him. Unless he's able to hurt Font with body shots, I don't see him outboxing Rob Font. Yeah, I agree with you. And you make a point. Rob Font is younger, but it's only by 9 months. Like, Aldo's been in the game for a long, long time. He has a lot of wear and tear on his body. Well, how old is Aldo?
Aldo is 35.
He might be the oldest 35-year-old on the planet. Because I'm not even saying that disrespectfully. I'm saying that with due respect, because physically he looks older, but also he has been in the game and around the block so many times. It's kind of like LeBron James, if you think about it. Yeah. Right? LeBron's turning 37, but he just seems so much older because he's done so much and he's been around for so long. Same thing with Aldo. Aldo has been around for years. WEC, then the UFC, all these promotions. When undefeated for over 10 years in a row, I mean, he might be the oldest 35-year-old on the planet. Yeah, I agree, actually. And yeah, like you said, he's kind of wearing his face now. You can see. My thing about this fight, I have Rob Font as well by unanimous decision. Rob Font, like you said, he turned Cody into a wrestler. Not only that, Cody's went down in weight. Turning Cody Garbrandt into a wrestler and retiring him from the 35 division, which he was the undisputed champ at, is something I don't think we give Rob Font enough credit for. And I know it wasn't the only reason Cody went down, but Cody's not getting a title shot in his first fight like he thought he was. He thought him and Figueiredo. He thought him and Davis and Figueiredo were going to have a fight. Figueiredo loses. So now what? Now you got to fight Car France. I'm interested to see how that fight's going to go, but we can talk about that another time. This is boxing heaven. Like you said, this is going to be a straight boxing match. Aldo's going to slip in a few kicks, but I don't think it'll be enough. Personally, I think his gas tank has failed him in championship rounds over the last maybe 2-3 years in his career. You know, Aldo will start strong. His first round is great. Second round is great. As the third comes on, slowing down. As the fourth, really slow. Like against Jan, he was, in my opinion, he was winning the fight up until maybe the fourth round. And then Jan just put on a pace. And Rob Font has that ability and has a similar style to Jan with the boxing. It's strict, it's clean, it's crisp boxing. And I think it'll be close. It might even be 2-1 Aldo going into the fourth and the fifth. But I think Font's pressure, his pace, and most importantly, his jab will be the key to making Aldo look like not Jose Aldo, in my opinion. I am so glad, Dorian, you said the jab. In particular, the double jab. His double jab against Cody Garbrandt, I think, is what won him the fight. Because Garbrandt was on his back foot. he was waiting for Font to get close enough that he could level change and then try to stop the bleeding, literally and figuratively, if you will. But Rob Font, his double jab, even if it doesn't land, it puts doubt in his opponent's mind. You know what? I need to get some distance. I need to back straight up, even though they shouldn't, because that's what he wants. They do, because that double jab, it's coming in hot, and that's how he wins fights. He's a great boxer, and I think Jose Aldo is just a little too long in the tooth to beat someone like Rob Font. Rob Font, when it's all said and done, might be fighting for a title down the line. He might.
Yeah, he's definitely on pace. I think this fight will line him up maybe with Sandhagen, or if Dillashaw is healthy and he doesn't get the immediate title shot, I think it'll be a very close number one contenders fight with Font, because he's streaking right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he knocked out Marias. He actually beat Sergio Pettis. I think that was Sergio's last fight in the UFC. Marlon and Cody, obviously, I think he won 4 in a row. But I don't want to just focus on that. Like, this is a great card. We have some names on this card. We got, obviously, Brian Barberena. I'm a big fan of him. Manel Kopp, we were just speaking about fighting Horiguchi. He's on the card. We got Chris Curtis is returning after his knockout over Phil Hawes. Quick turnaround for him against Brandon Allen, though. Tough matchup.
Yeah.
Jamal Hill's returning from that dislocated arm against
Crute. Jimmy Crute. This fight, it's Jimmy. Paul Craig was last fight, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying he was returning from the broken arm against Paul Craig, against Jimmy Crute. And then for me and a lot of MMA Twitter, the fight of the night is Brad Riddell and Rafa. Come on now. Fizzy and Riddell will be everything we want it to be. Like, you just know you're going to get a banger out of that fight. And then you top it off with Font Aldo. You know how that's going to end. Straight hands. Someone might go to bed. We'll see, I guess. Did want to mention, though, Felicia Spencer recently retired. You know, hell of a career. One of the pioneers in women's MMA. I think it's not for nothing, or it doesn't go unsaid when someone like this retires. We have to give her flowers, you know, because without her pushing the agenda, you know, pushing the female greats we know now, you know, Amanda Nunes went 5 hard rounds with her. Amanda finishes people. She went 5 with Amanda, you know, and countless other great matchups. So I don't know if you have some words for Felicia, but happy retirement. I hope you're happy. And I hope you're well.
It's tough to see someone like her walk away when she still has more left in the tank. But you know what? Like Dana White always says, if you're thinking about retirement, get out. And you know what? I don't blame her. At this point, will she ever be a champion? No. She might fight for a title, but is that what she really wants? I don't think so. I think she fights to be a champion. She looks spectacular against Leah Letson. That's a great way to cap off your career. So again, hat off to Felicia Spencer. One of the greatest wrestlers in mixed martial arts history. Mm-hmm. Aside from gender, take gender out of it. I think, and again, I don't know her personal life. I don't know if she has any desire to continue with combat sports. But I think she would be a phenomenal coach. Not just for women's MMA, but MMA in general, working on wrestling and even striking too, but wrestling and ground and pound and grappling, I think she'd be terrific at it.
Absolutely. And like you said, she went hard against Leah Letson. I thought she was going to get a performance of the night. I don't know how she didn't. That was absolutely dominant. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the grappling she has, it's almost like you can't teach that. Like, it's something, it's just talent. It's pure talent. You know, she choked out Megan Anderson, who recently fought for a belt. She's still a free agent. Again, went 5 hard rounds with Amanda Nunes in her prime. Like, not early Amanda, not, you know, over the hill Amanda. You know, hopefully there's not that. But, yeah, it needs to be said that she's a pioneer in women's sports. In women's MMA. And, yeah, I guess women's sports in general. And she went out with a dub, which is, like you said, that's how you want to go out. You don't want to go out on your back. You don't want to go out as the guy who, we don't want to go out like Frank Mir. But we can use there's hundreds of examples, but recently Frank Mir, you probably shouldn't have been in there. Tito, you probably shouldn't have been in there with Anderson Silva. You know, the list goes on and on. But Felicia Spencer, happy retirement. Guys, make sure, again, you subscribe to the YouTube page. The Instagram and Twitter is going up. Highlights posted all day, every day. And subscribe to the Patreon as well. We're giving away free plays for the Thursday night game, but it's not free. You got to pay to play because we winning big over here. And last but not least, certainly check out Shop Talk Next. And that's it. We out. Peace.
Get up, let me begin.